don't even want to know. I don't even want to know what happened to my mother. I don't want to know the details. I don't even want to know. I don't even want to know what happened to my mother. I don't want to know the details. I don't even want to know. I don't even want to know what happened to my mother. I don't want to know the details.
Is taking action for you.
And first to 60, investigation of a business deal that deals in human body parts shifting from Detroit to Chicago as the feds launch a new raid.
And once again, hundreds of families will be left wondering if the bodies of loved ones have been bought and sold on the black market.
7 Action News investigator Jim Kirchner is here tonight with a story you'll see only on 7. Jim.
Stephen and Carolyn, this case started here, according to sources, when a man named Arthur Rathburn was shipping human body parts through Metro Airport. Get this, the box leaked blood. Those cargo haulers then called for help. Why were you stockpiling hundreds of human body parts here, sir? That's Art Rathburn. And remember his business 13 months ago? For 2 days, federal investigators dressed in hazmat suits removed body parts of 1,000 different people. Arms, legs, heads cut up and kept on ice, not embalmed, so they would be fresh for the black market. Today, the rundown warehouse on Detroit's east side is shuttered and up for sale. Sources say Rathburn's seized records led them to the Chicago area today, a business called Biological Resource Center in Rosemont. It's difficult to see from the outside, but sources say the hazmat suits and raid are underway on the 6th floor of this office building. The same paper trail led investigators to Biological Resource Center in Phoenix last January, and another raid removing body parts and corpses. There were also ties to similar businesses in Las Vegas. Since these dealt directly with the public, families were left without answers. What do you say to all those families who had no idea their loved ones were in here? Michigan pulled Art Rathburn's license last year after our reporting, even though they were told about his problems 2 years before.
You can go find out what the heck he is doing, and that wasn't done. Right?
Did we do something 2 years ago? No, we didn't. Are we doing an investigation now? Yes, we are.
Are you worried about going to prison? Now, no one has been charged by the feds yet. There are actually 2 locations involved in this raid going on right now in the Chicago area. The offices in Rosemont and the lab in another suburb where they have found body parts. But my sources say this case is winding down, and with this new evidence in Chicago, they can now finish this case after some 13 months.
This is so gruesome. Any idea how many families you're talking about here with loved ones that may be involved?
It's going to depend a lot on the records. It depends if they're talking hundreds or thousands, and with those records that they've seized, and are those records even up to date, or have they been doctored? That could be spelled out in an indictment once it's handed down.
Yeah, you would not expect it necessarily to be accurate the way it's been handled so far. It could be very,
Erika Elam-Prewitt was only trying to honor her mother's last wishes by donating her remains to medical science.
I don't even want to know. I don't even want to know what happened to my mother. I don't want to know the details.
But Erika says that's a far cry from what she got.
I trusted them. I trusted them. My gut told me something wasn't right. I would have never donated her body for science if I had known this was what really went on.
And to make matters worse, she's not even sure whose cremated remains she got back.
I do not know if these are my mother's ashes, what is in the box that they gave me. I really don't know.
Erika's mother, Linda, died of cancer at home, surrounded by family. But at the time, Erika, an only child, could not afford a funeral and cremation. That's when she heard about the Biological Resource Center of Illinois.
They offered assistance in that way by providing us with cremation and an urn if we would agree to donate her remains for scientific research. It seemed like a viable solution. I know my mom would have wanted me to use her to help others.
Erika says the company was clear on how her mother's remains were used for research.
It was a pretty detailed letter as to how they used her for training or research, that kind of thing.
But soon after receiving her mother's ashes, she catches a story about the Biological Resource Center on the news. And the news is grim. Following up on an investigation, FBI agents raid the company's headquarters in Chicago. About the same time, they also raid the Biological Resource Center of Arizona in Phoenix. The two businesses have the same name and the same function, but are separately owned. And what agents allegedly find in both places is too horrific to show on national television or anywhere.
There's allegations that the bodies were hacked apart with a chainsaw. There's allegations that human heads were stored on top of each other without any protection in between the various layers. They were just stacked.
Attorney Brian Kabatek is investigating the claims of distraught families who handed over the remains of their loved ones to the centers in Chicago and Arizona.
The investigation shows that the bodies were dismembered, they were sold in pieces, they were sold for a profit, they were taken, and in some cases where the families hadn't authorized it, they were used for testing in crashes of automobiles.
And that includes testing by the military. Extreme testing, as in explosives.
What's the worst that you think happened here?
Well, I think the worst that happened is, in some cases, bodies were blown up or ballistic testing was used.
Kabatek says in many cases, bodies were cut up and sold in pieces, making it impossible to track down and return the full cremated remains as promised to the families by Biological Resource Center.
They didn't completely ever disclose to the people that the body parts were being sold through brokers to different locations. In some cases, the body parts were never reunited, and the cremated remains that were given to the family members may not be the cremated remains of their loved one.
The handling of donated remains for the benefit of science is a legitimate and regulated industry. But the owner of the Arizona Biological Resource Center, Stephen Gore, pleaded guilty to illegally conducting an enterprise and handling bodies in ways not consented to by families. But it gets worse. Stephen Gore also admitted in court that some bodies sold to unsuspecting buyers carried dangerous infectious diseases.
We do know that because in the indictment and in at least one plea agreement, some of the parties have already admitted that they knew that the body was HIV positive or had hepatitis C, and yet they didn't disclose that to the entity that the body was going to. They were being defrauded, but also they were putting in grave danger the personnel who were working with that body.
There have been no lawsuits filed by workers at Biological Resource or at companies that purchase cadavers for testing.
Every family member was told that their loved one was going to be treated with dignity. That just doesn't sound like dignity to us.
The kind of research that's done for medical science on cadavers and human body parts isn't going to be nice or pleasant. It's going to be very ugly. Is that what you have the problem with, or?
Well, dignity may include the fact that the body's going to be, operated on or tested by doctors or medical students or for medical purposes. I don't think you necessarily think that grandma's head's going to be sawed off.
The main motive, Kabatek says, is profit.
Do you have any kind of a dollar value on this?
I mean, the bodies can be worth anywhere from $10,000 to $50,000 on the market, legally sold. And the bodies are generally worth more dismembered than as an entire cadaver.
The Arizona Attorney General's office has offered to help straighten out the mess.
We're going to have to charge you if you want your loved one back. Does that seem fair?
It's certainly not fair to the families, because the families, all they expected they were doing was a good thing, and they were going to get their loved ones' cremated remains back.
I know who should pay. How about the broker?
Right.
Kabatek says some families may never recover the complete remains of their loved ones. Civil suits allege the Biological Resource Center of Illinois also lied to family members like Erika Elam-Prewitt by saying remains would not be sold, and then made a profit doing exactly that. Meanwhile, Erika continues to hope for justice for her family and for her mother as well.
I pray that God has mercy on their souls, because I know that they will receive judgment for the evil they've committed.